Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. We do want to continue on with our coverage of today's top stories and live events. Want to take you out to this podium shot that we have here as well. What we now know is that the governor of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker, will be meeting with community violence intervention leaders as they hold this emergency response training in order to prepare for potential federal deployments. As you can see, the cameras are shifting there in the room, and the governor has now officially walked in. So let's go ahead and pump up the audio and listen in here to some of these remarks on Live Now from Fox.
A little bit just, we have a special guest, our governor, who has been the #1 champion in our state for community violence intervention. Today, despite the weekend we had, we are about 32% down in terms of homicides, and 36% down in terms of non-fatal shootings, which, you know, we've had double-digit declines over the last 3 years, but today this is a historic year, and hopefully, if we stay on track, it'll be the best year in 60 years in Chicago. And we have a lot of thanks that we have to give to our governor for that support. So with that, I want to introduce Governor Pritzker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the kindness, and most importantly, the statistics. But they're more than statistics, as all of you know. These are people, and the work that you're doing, I have been, hopefully you've seen, I have been at the podium, you know, with the onslaught from Donald Trump. I have been very clear that it is community violence intervention services, the folks that are doing that work, all of you, that are making the real difference. That, you know, we can do all that we can do with police, but it is the work directly with people who are on the street and who need help and who need to be diverted and need sometime a big brother or a big sister or a friend and they need a job and they need an opportunity. And so I just want to tell you how meaningful the work is that you're doing, and that it doesn't get overlooked. And that you're right, from the very beginning. I mean, one of the things I have known as governor from day one is that you can't police your way out of the challenges. We need police, by the way. But I always say, you know, when I dial 911, I actually want somebody to show up, you know, because there's some kind of emergency. But you can't police your way out of all the problems. And what you can do, however, is work with people and try to understand them and then lift them up out of the situation that they're in, hoping to guide them in the right direction. And I know that's work that you do every day. So I just want to express my gratitude and also my solidarity with you in that endeavor. I was saying, I met with a couple of leaders in the other room about, well, we were just generally talking about the work you're doing, and one of the things I said to them that I think they agree with is the government hasn't been very good at maintaining the work that you do over a consistently, you know, lengthy period of time. It seems like, you know, the government's been, let's say, over the last 10 years, we're out, you know, and it hasn't been right. And so one of the things that we're trying to restore, and this is all in the face of the Trump administration trying to take money away from exactly these kinds of programs, is we're trying to restore consistency, because that is, I think, you know, keeping you at work and making sure that you're able to do this and that you're bringing other people in. That's how we're going to maintain the really great trajectory that we're seeing in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago. So I'm going to express to you my profound pessimism about one thing, and then I'll talk about optimism. But it's that we're not going to get any help from Washington. In fact, they're going to do the opposite. And what we can do is hold the line. I think other places are caving in and not willing to be consistent. But here in the city and the state of Illinois, like, our goal is, and you all are the champions on the front lines, our goal is to hold the line until we can get past this challenge that we're in. And so I'm doing everything I can to make sure that happens. That's not going to happen with troops on the ground in our neighborhoods. It's just not. They're not trained to do anything like what you're trained to do, or like what police are trained to do. They're not. They don't. I can tell you, National Guard are some of the best people you'll ever meet. They train really well, but what they train for is war. And thank God they go abroad and they sometimes have to fight battles and wars for us and protect our country. They're really good people. They don't want to stand on the street corners of the city of Chicago. They don't want to invade an American city. The National Guard's men and women, they don't want to do that. They're being ordered to do it. And if they don't do it, they get court-martialed and thrown in prison. And so I worry a lot that maybe people on the ground are going to see, if this happens, if in fact we see National Guard come to Chicago, trying like hell to keep them away. But if it happens, I'm hopeful that the people of Chicago will understand that those National Guardsmen themselves are not at fault. They're doing a job. Now, ICE is a whole other thing, and some of the federal agents, it's a whole other thing. But I just want to say to you that we're working like heck to make sure that you are on the front lines, that you and our police department are on the front lines, and not some people who are trained to go to war and then are sent to the streets to do work that they're not trained to do. So that's my pessimistic note, that I guess I'm deeply concerned, uncertain about what the future looks like at the moment. But as you can see, fighting like hell to make sure that we don't fall into the abyss as a result of unconstitutional actions by the president. Here's my optimistic note for all of you, which is since I took office and until today, and as long as I am governor, we are going to try to, and I think we're succeeding at it, consistently maintain a level of support for community violence intervention programs like we have never done before. I mean, in a way. And by the way, it's because it works, because you are actually making it happen the way that we're hopeful that you would. And I am, we're investing in something that we know is effective. And the statistics back it up, but the real lives of people back it up. And my optimistic note here is that you are carrying the load for so many of us, and it's our job in government anyway to back you up, and that's my job, to back you up. And then my last note to all of you is about the leadership that you demonstrate every day to the people that you work with, and just recognizing about all of you that you are special, that you all have demonstrated, because you're either already an expert or you're learning to be an expert, that you are helping lead another generation in a very positive direction, that you're lifting people up who otherwise would get no help. And that's something that I hope all of you are proud of. I am proud as your governor to support that effort, but it doesn't happen unless we have all of you. So thank you for who you are and what you're doing. Thanks very much, everybody.
Just one quick thought real quick, and I do just want to acknowledge why everybody's in here. We got 600 outreach workers across the city. We got 12 to 1,300 peacekeepers across the city and the suburbs. We got a solid CPRU team, and that's a blessing from the Most High. None of that's happening, again, if it's not for Governor Pritzker. But I also want to acknowledge, and a lot of people may not even know, Deputy Governor Grace Hope, Madam Sister Secretary Bell right here, and Arnie Duncan. You know what I mean? Appreciate y'all.
Can I take any questions?
Yeah, happy to.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Vanessa.
Governor Pritzker, this is for you. 1, 2, 3.
That says it all.
We can get back to training. Thank you, sir.
All right, as you see, they're just listening into some of those remarks there from the Illinois Governor Pritzker. They're talking about the potential National Guard deployment to Chicago. The governor, though, walking out of the room. He was meeting with community violence intervention leaders as they were holding this emergency response training in order to prepare for those potential federal deployments. And so we definitely wanted to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. Also want to transition the screen to show you a live look there at the White House. Of course, we know this has been a major topic of conversation. In fact, as Vice President J.D. Vance was just getting on the plane to leave the Minneapolis area, he was asked about this very things, asking what would happen if President Trump does decide to send the National Guard to Chicago. He said that he wanted to stay away from any political questions as he was there in the city of Minneapolis to honor those victims of the mass shooting that took place at a school last week. So we wanted to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. Let's take this time, though, to slide away for another quick 2-minute commercial break. Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. We do want to head back to Illinois as we now see the governor, J.B. Pritzker, stepping up to answer questions after that press conference. Let's listen in.
Going into action, what day they'll be completed, assembling. We have an idea, and I talked about that yesterday. It looks like they're going to be fully assembled on Friday. It doesn't mean they're going to be in action on Friday, although that could happen. I also don't want to tell you that I know absolutely because they haven't confirmed any of that to us. But what we're hearing is that they'll be assembled, ready to go on Friday, and that they would begin actions on Saturday over the weekend. So that's all we know. And what we're doing is, of course, making sure that the CPD and local law enforcement are aware of what they're doing, so they can, one, make sure they're not standing anywhere near those actions or assisting in those actions, but also being ready for protests that might occur. And then very importantly, we've asked for the public to be ready with your iPhone and any way that you can to record what's going on in their neighborhoods by ICE, because we think that's the best way to demonstrate what ICE is doing if they're doing something wrong, or to keep them honest and doing the right thing because they know they're being watched.
What
Yes, sir.
type of protection are you offering the community outside of getting upset?
Well, as you know, we cannot stand in the way. It's not like we're going to have armed men standing in between. That's not something that's legal. That's not something that the state of Illinois can engage in or the city of Chicago can engage in. What we're trying to do is to get them to follow the law, and when they are not following the law, we can take them to court, prosecute them if they're doing something truly illegal, which one of the things we're very concerned about is you saw what happened in LA. There was a whole lot of activity that appeared to be illegal. And so some of that went to court in California. Some of decisions have already been made, at least about National Guard, and some of those court cases are still ongoing. So we're going to do everything we can to protect people's safety. That is something that the Chicago Police Department, Illinois State Police, and other local law enforcement are responsible for, but can't stand in the way of the execution of, for example, a warrant. that ICE is trying to execute. Yeah, Marianne.
There are those critics who are saying this is all political. You won't call the president because you have your own aspirations and it would look weak. How do you respond to that?
That's silly. That is absolutely ridiculous. Let me be clear. The president is begging me to call him to ask him to do something that we don't want. He wants me to call him and ask him to call in National Guard to the city of Chicago. We don't want it. So that's why I'm not calling the president. I have been very clear about what we do want. What we do want is civilian law enforcement assistance. We want to make sure that we have enough FBI, ATF, DEA on the ground. We have some already, as you know. They do really good work, working in tandem with state police, working in tandem with Chicago Police Department. But we can use more. We can interdict more drugs and more guns that are coming across the border into the city, into the state of Illinois. And there's more work that we can do to make sure that we're fighting crime with, again, civilian law enforcement. And I've been very clear about that. The president wants me to call him about National Guard. I'm not going to do that.
Governor,
Yeah.
you talked yesterday about picnics and parades specifically. Can you tell us sort of where that intel comes from? Because, our station's been talking to parade organizers today, and they say, as far as they know, there's no reason to believe that's a threat. Can you tell us where your information comes from?
Look, I'm not going to tell you where it comes from, and it's not because it doesn't exist. It's because we've gotten calls from people who don't want to reveal their names to the public. These are people from inside the administration or inside the military or inside the National Guard who are concerned about what's happening in this country. These are patriots who want us to know what's happening. We're getting no information from the federal government, and all we got was one call from Gregory Bovino, who let us know that ICE would be instituting actions in the city of Chicago without any details at all. So I want to be clear. I'm not going to reveal where we're getting this information from, but I am going to be communicative to the public about what we have heard and what we do know so that they can be prepared themselves. Olivia.
Thank you. Governor Abbott yesterday, after your comments, basically denied that the Texas National Guard is being staged. I'm wondering if you can respond to that.
Yeah, guess what? When they want to federalize, sorry, I just want to respond to that because I've heard this. When they want to federalize the National Guard, they do not call the governor. They call the National Guard. There is a National Guard Bureau in Washington, D.C. that operates with all of the National Guards across the country. They start there, and they work through the National Guard. So I'm not suggesting that I am absolutely certain of whether or not the Texas National Guard will, in fact, end up in the state of Illinois. What I know is that we've been told by people who seem to have the credentials to know that that is what is happening. If he wants to deny it, the governor of Texas, let's just take into account that he has not been a good actor at all toward the state of Illinois. So I don't really trust anything that he is saying in this moment. Yes.
I'm calling the president. You said something to the effect yesterday, you don't want to be part of the spectacle, but President Trump tends to like a show.
The spectacle, yeah.
Don't you think if you maybe called him, you could lower the temperature in all of this and you could ask for the civilian resources, the law enforcement, non-military resources that you just talked about? For example, sir, if you were president and you wanted someone to call you, wouldn't you want them to call you?
No, I would pick up the phone and call them. I don't understand why everybody doesn't understand this. It's as if he's begging me to call him because he wants me to ask him for National Guard. That is what he is trying to do. There's a second reason, and you should pay close attention to this. He wants to set into the fact pattern that the governor called him to ask for help. Why? Because he's going to end up in court. He's going to end up in court. And that will be a fact that they will use in court, that the governor called to ask for help. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to provide him with evidence to support his desire to have the court rule in his favor. I'm just not going to do that.
Last question.
Shia.
This morning, Trump said, maybe listening to you, he said he wants to go to states where the governors do want him and that they might go to New Orleans. And it's not clear whether he
he meant instead of Chicago or in addition to Chicago. Are you hearing anything about that?
No, I think it's possible that he actually heard about the decision in the California case about National Guard. I mean, I know the man doesn't read much, but maybe somebody told him about it. And that decision was that, no, you cannot create a nationalized police force out of the National Guard and send them in wherever you want to. That is illegal. Posse comitatus. Period. Everybody should look that up. You cannot do criminal investigations or law enforcement with our military. And that is what that case held. That is what the law already says. And I think he is just, I mean, he may have actually heard that. So where can he go? Well, where a governor asks for help or asks for the National Guard to come in. I want to point out one other thing. The governor of Louisiana doesn't need the President of the United States to call out his National Guard to deal with crime. A governor can call out, I called out the National Guard. I've done it several times. I did it when we had protests that got out of control in the city of Chicago. I've done that before as a governor. Governor of Louisiana can do that too. So you should pay attention to, he's looking for circumstances in which the governor is willing to call out the National Guard so that he can look like he's getting something done. The governor of Louisiana can do that on his own, doesn't need the president to ask him to do it.
All right, thank you so much, everybody.
All right, as you see there, as he walks out of the room, the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, making some remarks there, talking about the National Guard deployment that could happen there in the city of Chicago. I want to put up this post as well from his X account that he's been talking about as we're leading up to the days. We do know that President Trump announced on Tuesday that he does plan to deploy the National Guard to Chicago in what he calls an effort to curb violent crime, although at this point has not provided a distinct timeline. We did hear, though, J.B. Pritzker talking about the day of Friday potentially being the start of that as well. But this is from the X account of J.B. Pritzker saying that Chicagoans reject Trump's proposed invasion of our city. And Chicago's business community has been clear. No tariffs, no troops, and cut the chaos. The president should know that the people of Chicago, Illinois, and the nation don't take well to brazen federal overreach. Of course, we'll continue to follow this story here on Live Now from Fox as we get those additional updates, but want to leave you with this live vantage point as well. They're in the downtown Chicago area, as you heard there from that news conference and the remarks that Governor Pritzker made shortly before that. Governor Pritzker has agreed, along with other leaders there in the city, including the mayor, Brandon Johnson, that they will push back against the White House's agenda there.